Hello and welcome to the Otaku Network podcast. My name is Steve.
And I'm David.
And we are into week 8 of the winter season of 2025. So without further ado, we will get on to talking about the most recent episode of Zenshu. This episode of Zenshu does a little bit of recapping. We kind of get a Cliff Notes version of the history of the struggle to defend the soul futures against the voids in a series of essentially defeats where Luke continues to see his comrades dying one after another as they also struggle to defend the soul futures until we get to there being the 4 heroes that we met in the beginning and only one soul future. It then moves into Luke trying to rectify these growing feelings he's having for this strange new force that's joined them. And when we get to the present time, the narration shifts pretty much back to Natsuko's perspective, and she pretty much comes face to face with doubt that the vulture has been seeding within her. The original author of A Tale of Perishing. QJ ends up having a heart-to-heart conversation with Natsuko, where Natsuko pretty much tells him what she's been trying to avoid this entire time, talking about how in the original story of A Tale of Perishing, Luke continued to suffer loss after loss after loss until it drove him to the point where he was the catalyst for the end of everything by being the one that destroys the final soul future. QJ gives a bit of a death flag, which I'll admit I didn't recognize when it showed up.
I didn't either.
He tries to be very positive and everything's going really well, so he tries to convince Natsuko that everything's going to be Daijobu. Immediately then, a void attacks. It's the return of a flying void capital ship, you could say. So they go to face it, but this time the void appears to be replicating some of the things that Natsuko used to defeat them in past battles. The battle rages on, and the voids are gaining the upper hand, to the point where Natsuko is struggling to answer the threat. And more so, the voice of the original author is pecking away at her at the background, causing her to lose composure. There's a point where she crumples up one of the pages as she's trying to work through her motions, throws it to the ground, and the page erupts into animated squiggles that do some defensive attack, and she presses on, but continues to fail at coming up with a solution because of the doubt that's existing within her now. An attack by the void ends up destroying her drawing desk, and despair truly begins to set in at this point. QJ sees an opportunity and does what Unio was supposed to have done a number of battles ago, and sacrifices himself to save the others. And now we're left with a significant level of uncertainty, particularly in Natsuko's own consciousness, about the chances of defying the will of the original creator and ensuring a happy ending for everybody, especially now that another one of the 9 soldiers has sacrificed themselves for the cause that seems to have no successful outcome. I tell you, this past couple of episodes, this show has made me very emotional.
Oh, dude. I never thought I would get emotionally attached to QJ. And then he's like, your happy ending will come. And then he just goes and sacrifices himself. And I'm like, no, come back. When you said that QJ basically said everything was going to be Daijobu.
Yeah.
My first thought was, and everything would not be Daijobu.
I didn't recognize that death flag until he sent himself off into the noble sacrifice. I'm like, oh, I should have noticed.
Yeah, no, the death flag flew, and I missed it.
The show is in this interesting point where the atmosphere that she has been striving to prevent has finally arrived, and she's truly beginning to question whether she has any control over the situation or not, or if she's just prolonging the inevitable. The destiny, if you will, versus free will. And I'm really leaning into the concept that the original author is the force of inevitability that they're going to have to overcome.
Yeah. Also, can I just say that I really, really liked the 90s style animation when Natsuko was telling QJ about how the plot of the story goes.
Oh yeah, it was pretty much just showing the flashbacks were from her memory when she was watching the anime itself. They've used that style of animation throughout the series as she's talking about the show itself.
Breaking the damn fourth wall.
It's the weird situation of she's living within a fictional story. There's always been the two different vantage points of that fictional story. The original version that was truly a piece of artwork, and then the current version that she's living and breathing through.
Yeah, this show continues to move me in ways that I didn't know I was going to be moved.
I think at the end of the day, it's just incredibly beautiful storytelling.
Mappa knew what they were doing. Every time I talk about this show to someone, I continue to use the words you used at the very beginning when we first started talking about it, how it is a love letter.
Oh, yeah.
It's meant to be this, like, dear anime, here's why we love you.
Yeah.
And it continues to do that, and I love it. This show is just so good.
It is really, yeah. Oh.
There legitimately was, like, this huge lump in my heart when we got to the part where, like, Luke was trying to, like, figure out what he was feeling. And, like, I kept thinking, like, why do I relate to this so much? And then I thought, I'm like, we've all kind of felt like that at some point in our life. And it's now finally put into, like, words, a feeling that sometimes some people just struggle to describe. And I thought that was really, really moving and really heartfelt of the show to do, like how he's feeling about Natsuko and everything. And I thought it was a great way to finally have it put into words, and I really, really liked the way they had him say it.
Natsuko's experiences and the relationships that she has established within the world of A Tale of Perishing is going to help her to break through whatever dam has been in place that has prevented her from working on her movie First Love.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's also one of the reasons why I keep thinking she's in a coma.
I mean, we'll see.
We will see. We have a couple more episodes left.
I feel like it would be a little cop-outy if it was just a coma.
Oh, but I don't know.
If they do it well, I'll be okay with it. But if it's just kind of like, she was alive the whole time, I'll be like, okay, Zenshu.
So far, with the care that they've handled this story and how it's weaved its way through many different stylistic choices and story types, I have faith that they will be able to make the landing in the way that it needs to be made.
I don't want it to be one of those stories where it's like, this show is amazing until the last episode.
I have faith in Mappa. I think they can do this.
Yeah, it's true. It is Mappa. They consistently deliver beautiful art, beautiful stories.
Yes.
All right, we've avoided it long enough. Let's talk about the bad anime.
A story that doesn't have beautiful art or a beautiful story. Übel Blatt.
This week on Übel Blatt, we open to a scene where the equivalent to Landgrave.
Okay, so apparently the fiefdom that each of the 7 heroes has is something grave.
So this is the battery grave.
Battery grave, yes.
Which makes me think it's like artillery or something. I don't know. Because, like an artillery battery.
Yeah.
We open with him basically being given women, and he immediately thinks one of them's an assassin and kills her because she's wearing a earring that kind of looks like Cohenzel's knife things in his hair. Then we get this flashback to the Emperor talking to all the heroes about how there is a killer on the loose and that they all need to be preparing and watching out for this killer. We then get some more fan service in the sense of all 3 of the girls being dancers in a tavern. It then basically just leads to a lot of like cloak and dagger-ness of like Cohenzel paying people to give him maps. We get introduced to the Order of the 7 Heroes, which is a knightly order. And we also get introduced to the idea that the Empire is kind of like the Holy Roman Empire in medieval times, where there's elector counts and they all participate in electing the Emperor. There's a lot of backstory, but also at the same time not a lot, because it's just stuff that honestly we don't need to know based on the story that's being told.
Yeah, apparently there are 8 different families who are the ones who pretty much make the choice of who the succeeding emperors will be.
Yeah, and the only reason we learn this is because one of the Order of the 7 is the daughter of one of the electors. And I don't know what else to say. That's basically the episode.
Cohenzel is in high. He's disguising himself because they're looking for a young demi-human with pigtails and a scar. So he paints what looks like tattoos on his eyes, and then dresses himself up as a girl There's the incident where what we learn later as being one of the Order of the Lances or whatever, Order of the Spears, I forget what it's called, ends up at the bar where the girls are...
Order of the Seven Spears, that's what
Order
it's
of the
called.
Seven Spears, yeah. A fracas happens, and he steps up and saves PP and Ott. That's her name.
Ott, that's it.
He saves PP.
Altea's the older woman.
Yeah. Then it transpositions to you finding out that there's a group of 4 of this order that are sent specifically into this free city because they're pretty sure that Koanzel is there, and the episode ends with them finding Koanzel because they have a very bound. One of them has a very bound to them that they use as a dowsing rod of sorts, a bloodhound.
Yeah, that was fucking weird too.
Yeah, man, there was a lot of thongs in this episode.
That just, oh god, all I could think of was the thong song. Dude, I'm just, the show is so bad.
Yeah. Although I liked the design of Koanzel's disguise. I thought that was a pretty cool design. It looked like some mystical desert dweller.
Yeah, it's just the show needs to. I can't. I roll my eyes every time it comes on.
I don't know. I mean, this episode was a lot of setup. So we're getting introduced to this band of hunters that are supposed to be this very powerful warriors. We're getting a little bit more exposition about the makeup of the Empire and kind of some of its motivations. And we're building also on the personality of Koanzel's next target. And the first guy, Stolen Welch, I mean, he was a terrible human being. This new guy appears to be even worse.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Could not.
Thirsts
for young women, kills without a second thought, just cuts down innocent servants or whatever without, the epitome of evil. We'll see how much more despicable they make him before he meets his ultimate narrative fate. It'll be interesting to see how Koanzel frees himself from the watchful eye of this powerful, quintet of hunters. We'll see what happens next episode.
Something dumb. He's gonna I'm actually God, and then they die.
There's no redemption for the show when you take the 3 female characters that are part of the general narration and relegate them to nothing but eye candy and distraction.
The sad part is they want to be strong characters.
I'm struggling to figure out what the actual audience of this show is.
Every time I bring up Übel Blatt to people that I would expect to maybe know it,
they've never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
I'm struggling to understand what the target audience is, because typically in this type of super machismo fantasy story, the primary hero is somebody that has a Adonis-like physique. Instead, you have this cherubic, feminine-like, short stature demi-human being who, even before he was a demi-human, he was a young man. You look at Berserk as just the example that is pretty much the king example. Guts is this grizzled, world-worn, muscle-bound, just gritty antagonist or protagonist.
I wonder if...
I mean, the show's definitely not aimed at a female readership. There's absolutely no way.
What I'm trying to say is it supposed to be maybe pseudo-Christian?
Oh, I don't know.
Hear me out.
Uh-huh.
What if he's part of one of those weird cults that they have in Japan? Happy something or another, or
well, there's the Unification Church.
What if this is just some telling of some or an attempt to, I don't know, maybe a weird religious connotation?
I don't know.
I have no clue. I don't know what's going on with this fucking story. Because it's got fairies and elves, but also has angels, and I'm so
in all
I'm
honesty,
so confused, Steve.
The story is painting a picture of a world where humans are terrible.
Yes. We all can agree that the humans in this show are fucking atrocious.
And not even just the ones that are committing the atrocities, but the general populace is presented as willfully compliant to the destruction of anything around them that isn't human. There's a lot of prejudice against the demi-humans, a lot of just blasé reactions towards the wiping out of entire encampments of the demi-humans and the blind worship of the 7 heroes. They can't all be winners, David.
I know. It's just now I just want to figure out what the fuck is wrong with the artist.
Yeah.
Who hurt you? Ugh. Right, I think we've thoroughly torn this anime a new asshole enough. I think it's time we talk about Sakamoto.
So this week in Sakamoto, we continue with the storyline exploring Shin's past. And we actually get a deeper dig into Shin's past as we show how he ended up at the laboratory. And instead of him being the subject of mad experimentation, he ended up being a precocious child and accidentally granted himself the ability to read people's minds. So he ended up being abandoned at the laboratory, and the man who is running it begrudgingly looks after Shin. So they kind of have this like aggressive father-son relationship that develops. And Shin, being completely oblivious to everything he does at this point as like, 8 or 10-year-old child, ends up drinking a concoction, which they had shown he is prone to do. This concoction ends up working, and that's how he gains his psychic ability. The ability, though, freaks out everybody that works at the lab, and so they pretty much turn their backs on him, which causes him to leave within relative immediacy after gaining his abilities. And as a small child, we're presuming striking out on his own into the world. We find out this background because the gentleman whose name I'm forgetting, the guy who runs the lab, was telling this tale to both Lou and the guy who orchestrated her kidnapping in order to convince them that they all need to join together to do a prison break.
I love that she chokes him out like multiple occasions.
Yeah. So meanwhile, while this is happening, Sakamoto and Shin are struggling to fight the terribly designed angry medicine man Psycho. We find out that Sakamoto was infected with one of his needles too, and he can kind of control which direction Sakamoto is going to attack. By the end of it, Shin and Sakamoto once more use Shin's psychic abilities to give Sakamoto the upper hand, and Sakamoto's reflexes and power is too much for the crazy old guy. So he's finally defeated, and we move on to going deeper into the complex to try to rescue Lou. At the same time, we have the 2 members of the Order that we had seen at the end of the last episode who have come, and they have now, I do not remember their names. They have come.
Oh, shit.
Was it Shishiba and Osaragi?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. They end up confronting Reindeer Headman. Reindeer Headman has 2 henchmen who immediately get dispatched by the combination of Shishiba and Osaragi, but mostly Osaragi because she is the stereotypical demure, Victorian maid kind of looking character who is ultra violent. She has a table saw of sorts as a weapon. Something like that.
She's very demure, very mindful, and very loaded with a chainsaw.
She would fit quite neatly into the pantheon of extreme psychopaths from Black Lagoon. So Reindeer Boy has to fight himself, and we find out that he just has weapons. He has monofilament wire stitched within his body. And so he starts using that. Apparently he's working for some assassin named Slur, who the Order is truly looking for. Before the fight can really get anywhere, Sakamoto drops in, and the 2 members of the Order exchange pleasantries with the previous member of the Order in Sakamoto, and leave him to deal with Reindeer Boy. And that's kind of where the episode ends.
They were very, very just, how's it going?
Businesslike.
To each other.
Very businesslike.
Yeah, like a very Midwestern, tell your moms I says hi.
The part that I actually enjoyed was Shin ended up running into the driver / snarky underling of the guy who led the kidnapping situation, who's wearing the thermoptic clothing, ends up facing Shin, and so the 2 start fighting against each other. And Shin's getting his ass kicked until idiot Sniper Boy shows up and kind of gives Shin the upper hand by putting 2 into Invisible Boy. I like Seba's character. I think he's a fun character. I just kind of like his style, the way he fights, and just his personality. He's like, I don't like working overtime, so we're gonna have to make this really quick. And in him just trying to take out Shin. We have Sakamoto versus Reindeer Boy, and then we have Heisuke and Shin versus Seba, and it'll be a matter of who Lou runs into first, I guess, and how that transpires. But now we also see a widening arc. Well, returning to the arc that started, in episode 3, with the Order bringing up that there's somebody that's killing assassins. And there's a good chance that it may be this slur person. That, according to Reindeer Boy, Sakamoto's the only one that's ever been able to hurt slur. We'll see what happens.
Every time I heard them say slur, all I could think of was Slurm from Futurama.
Yes.
And I was just like, no, they're not talking about They're not talking about Futurama.
I appreciated getting more background information about Shin. I still don't really like Shin.
I know you don't, and I doubt you ever will.
No, probably not.
I like him.
Next episode will probably resolve this arc, and then the next arc maybe we'll start digging into the background of the slur thing.
I think we're gonna figure out who Slur is at least before the end of the season.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it's gonna completely resolve the conflict, but
it could. But
I couldn't tell you, and I don't want to estimate.
Yeah, no, we'll find. Well, I'm sure we can.
I don't want to cheat.
I try not to. I do sometimes because I like to dig into things on Wikipedia, and some of that information gets a little deeper than I appreciate. Right away, I'm like, oh, damn it. I love that Zenshu has yet to have a down moment.
Yeah.
Every single episode so far has been consistent and quality.
I don't think I've been disappointed with a single episode of it yet.
No, I don't think there's ever been a moment where you just want it to hurry up and move on to the next thing. Übel Blatt, on the other hand.
You can't watch that show fast enough.
I think I've figured out who the target audience of Übel Blatt is.
Who?
It's just people needing FAP material.
Oh, gross.
I think that's all it is. But he probably figured if he just did hentai, he wouldn't make a lot of money. So he did something a little bit more wider reaching or easier to sell, maybe.
I'm now suffering because of your statements.
I'm sorry. Sakamoto is okay. It was all right. The show gets really ridiculous sometimes, and I don't know how much I enjoy that. Or I don't enjoy it a lot. I mean, it is what it is, but sometimes I think it's a little too much for how over the top.
The ridiculousness.
Oh, over the top some of the characters are and their personalities and their predilections. Sometimes it's a little too much for me.
I finally bit the bullet and watched the first 2 episodes of Goblin Slayer.
Oh, how'd that go?
Struggled through the first episode, but after I got through that,
yeah,
it's pretty entertaining. I was painting, so anytime it got rough for me, I just went back to painting a really, really hard part so that I didn't have to watch.
Fair. All right. Anything else?
Other than I wish Übel Blatt would just burn and die? No.
All right. Well, thanks again for listening. As you suffer through us suffering through Übel Blatt. A couple more episodes left, and then we can leave it in the wayside. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on our socials. Come harass us on Discord. I don't know. If you're a fan of Übel Blatt, let us know what aspects of the show are things that have made you enjoy it. I seriously want to understand what people see in this show. Not to be mean. I'm just I'm struggling to see beyond the
entertainment.
Scantily clad women of various, body types. Otherwise, don't forget our other episodes that come out on Wednesdays called Anime Plus, where we are getting really close to the end of Orb. There are 2 more episodes left after this week. So yeah, the story is is only increasing in its quality as we near the end. All right. Well, thanks again, and we will see you guys next time.
Deuces.